Charles? Oh, thank you. Do you mind sharing with them, or is that?
We're not together.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't know you were doing this.
Oh, yeah.
I saw your name.
Can you do me a favor? Can you save 6 copies?
Wow.
Or 5. I need 1 more. Yeah. I'm happy to do it. I don't care.
This morning, it's funny. Sorry, it's a mad rush.
Once our house loan went off,
Right. Until the end of the year.
we called the cops. We were going off. So like, you guys don't have to come out. And they were like, yeah, we're not. So we might have to patrol go through at some point and drive by. Yeah, that's what it got. How you doing?
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here, all of you. We have adjourned closed session and reconvening in open session. Let me ask Julie Roster to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have one action to report out from closed session. In closed session, the board considered an appeal of a decision issued by the district's compliance officer in response to a uniform complaint alleging non-compliance with Ed Code Section 51210G. Pursuant to the district's administrative regulation 1312-3 concerning uniform complaint procedures, the board has decided not to hear the complaint. The compliance officer's decision is now final, and notice of the board's decision will be sent to the party presenting the appeal. Now is a public comment period. Persons may speak on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Speakers are requested to fill out a speaker card and to state their name and address before addressing the board. Individual speakers are asked to limit their comments for any item to not more than 3 minutes in order to allow everyone who wishes to speak the opportunity to do so. Groups are asked to limit their comments to a total of 10 minutes. The board shall limit total time of public comment to 15 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. If additional time is needed, public comment will continue after the discussion items. So in looking at the comment cards, so far I see everything here for kindergarten, which I know is on our agenda. Are there comment cards on items that are not on the agenda? Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to have our recognitions. These are employees of the month for January of 2015. The board will recognize Betsy Howard, certificated staff, and Kevin Wynn of the classified staff for their outstanding efforts on behalf of the school district. And we'd like to start with Kevin Wynn. Kevin, can you come forward? Thank you so much. Kevin Wynn joined the Wagner Ranch staff this fall as the night custodian. Since then, he has been a consistent and hardworking contributor to the quality learning environment there. He is incredibly thorough and conscientious in his work and is always willing to lend an extra hand wherever and whenever it is needed. Prior to his work at Wagner, he was a popular and highly valued substitute custodian to the district. We thank Kevin for his dedication and outstanding service, and we feel so grateful that he's now a full-time employee of the district. Thank you very much. Next is Betsy Howe. There you go. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here today. We appreciate it. Betsy Howe is a Sleepy Hollow 4th grade teacher. She is our certificated employee of the month for January of 2015. It is with pleasure that we honor Sleepy Hollow 4th grade teacher Betsy Howe as the January certificated employee of the month. Over the past 5 years, Betsy has continuously displayed and modeled the utmost in teacher professionalism, collaboration, and innovation. Betsy has worked on several district-wide curriculum projects, always with the goal of not only improving her teaching craft, but sharing those gathered strategies and techniques with her colleagues and grade-level partners. At Sleepy Hollow, Betsy has taken a lead role in many important areas of teaching: technology, writer's workshop, student council, and a school-wide talent show. She has also been instrumental in the development of teachers at grades 4 and 5, engaging in vertical grade level planning on Mondays. We take great pride in celebrating Betsy Howe as the January Certificated Employee of the Month. Next, we have our consent calendar. Items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine or acted on by the Board of Trustees in one motion. There is no discussion of these items before the board vote unless a member of the board, staff, or public requests specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar. It is understood that the administration recommends approval on all consent items. Each item on the consent calendar approved by the board shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. Anything on the consent calendar?
I have one small change on the minutes on page 2. Sorry. Discussion item 2015, and I think it's supposed to be 2016 draft school year calendar.
Towards the bottom of the page, under the discussion item of the draft school year calendar, it should say 2015 to 2016. So noted. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move we approve the consent calendar with the minutes as amended.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is an agreement with Terra Verde Renewable Partners for a solar project. This item has been tabled. We're going to move on to item B. Service contract for interim director of business services, CBO. This item has been tabled. We're moving on to item C, 2015-2016 school year calendar. Ms. Marshall.
Before you tonight for action is the draft 2015-2016 school calendar. This came to the board last month for discussion and outlined the days for the start of school, the end of school, staff development days, conferences, and what has been added this time since the last discussion are the trimester dates onto the calendar. So following the discussion at the last board meeting, the curriculum committee met and they included the dates where the trimesters would end for T1, T2, and T3. And those are listed on your agenda this evening. So with that, we are putting this before you for approval tonight.
You know, we've had discussions on this. Anything from the board on this? Questions for Kathy?
I just wondered why this wasn't on consent calendar. Just as an educational point for a newbie.
Any comments from the public on this item? Anything else from the board? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the 2015-2016 school calendar.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Kathy. We're on to discussion items. Discussion item A, kindergarten schedules. The Director of Curriculum Instruction will present information on kindergarten schedules.
So we're going to set up a little PowerPoint here that will help guide the discussion. As you can see here, we are here for the purposes of discussing kindergarten schedules. This has been a topic that the board requested would be put on the agenda for this month. In addition, I want you to know that it was also a discussion item that was requested for coordinating council that took place on January 27th. And I met with kindergarten teachers last week to discuss the same topic. And there have been parent communications via email, phone calls, and meetings as well. So the purpose here tonight is for me to lay some groundwork for that discussion to take place. And so if we were to look at what are the state requirements for kindergarten, I'll start with that. So the state requirements right now for kindergarten is that there is a minimum number of minutes of 180 minutes that is required, or 3 hours. The maximum number is 4 hours. And for districts operating a transitional kindergarten program, the district must provide that program with the equal length of minutes as their kindergarten programs. And this is according to the Education Code, which I've listed. There's a range of numbers 461110 to 46119 addresses kindergarten. When we look at our current kindergarten schedules, those are in the center column. I've also listed the kindergarten schedules from last year. You'll see that there was an alignment that took place between last year's across our schools and this year's. And that alignment took place with regard to the lunchtime minutes. So in order to put everybody on the same minute schedule, the lunchtime minutes were reduced at 2 schools, at Glorietta and at Sleepy Hollow. This was also a budget consideration. So there's been talk about extended day. What is extended kindergarten, or EDK? It actually is established under the guidelines of what the state refers to as the early primary program. And an early primary program is defined as a class that is taught by the same certificated staff member. It exceeds the 4-hour maximum number of school day minutes, exclusive of recesses, and it does not exceed the length of the primary school day. Within the Ed Code, when there is an EDK, or an extended day kindergarten, the board adopts a policy establishing an early primary program. And within that policy, as I mentioned on the previous slide, it clearly states that the school day does not exceed that of the oldest students. For us, that would be 5th grade at the school. And it also needs to include language that describes ample opportunities for both active and quiet activities with an integrated, experiential, and developmentally appropriate program. Districts do not receive additional apportionment funds when they begin the kindergarten day. So when we hear early primary program, what is that defined as? Again, that same language, integrated, experiential, and developmentally appropriate. It incorporates various instructional strategies and assessment practices using concrete manipulative materials, and there's planned articulation across the board including parent involvement and parent education. So when I went further to say, okay, what is the definition of integrated, experiential, and developmentally appropriate? According to Ed Code, it's a program that is designed around the abilities and interests of the children in the program. It focuses more on integration, learning about the subjects through a variety of active learning, hands-on teaching methods that are most appropriate for young children. So then we take it one step further to look at the research. What is the research that talks about extended day kindergarten? And there is some national research, but the California Department of Education does not have any current research right now on which districts are using a part-time or half-day program, sometimes maybe referred to as part-time or a full day. And most important, they do not have research on best practices. So actually there was legislation that was passed and is now New Education Code 46116. It was approved in September 28th this school year actually. And part of that Ed Code requires that there be a state evaluation of kindergarten programs and the implementation for all kindergarten programs, regardless of how many minutes they are. And this evaluation will include recommended best practices for full-day programs. And the report is to be completed by July 1st, 2017. So the CDE is in process right now of having this funded. Once the report is completed, the Ed Code goes away. So meantime, if districts are interested in implementing the extended day program, there are recommendations. First and foremost, to review all of the education codes, to consult bargaining units, and to adopt the board policy establishing the early primary program. Oftentimes, depending on the policies that boards have in place, in addition to a current kindergarten or first grade or primary program, a policy could include the early primary program. So as people have been meeting and discussing and thinking about this, there are considerations and budget implications for our district. And so up here are just a few that have crossed my desk to present to you for discussion. One is if there was an extended day kindergarten program, which would be a longer day, would there need to be additional aid time? So to give a point of reference, that an average cost would be $19.30 an hour. Now that's not what an instructional assistant would get. That is the hourly rate, including all of the statutory benefits that are required. So currently we have 14 classrooms. Within the 14 classrooms, so that would be for each hour that would be added $270.20 per additional hour. For the bargaining units, the working conditions, that would need to be negotiated. That's unknown. And class size, at this point, it doesn't look like there would be any. But if enrollment increased and there needed to be space for the students, if it could withstand or go above the 20, that might, the 20 to 1 on class size reduction, that could keep costs down. But if there was space that was needed for enrollment increases, maintaining the 20 to 1, then the estimated cost of a refurbished classroom is approximately $60,000. In our district, kindergarten teachers provide intervention. They're full-time teachers, and so when they're not with their kindergarten students, they provide additional assistance to other students. And so with that, depending on the length of the extended day, if the day was such that they couldn't provide the intervention any longer, I've included the costs here, approximately what that would cost. And so we have 14 teachers providing that intervention support. The range to replace that, this is operating intervention at 4 days a week for the year. Could it be anywhere from approximately $66,000 up to $71,700 annually?
Kathy, can I just ask you, is that per school site?
That would be total.
Total for the district?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's, yes, total for the district.
Thank you.
If there's an extended day, there will most likely be a noon session or lunch recess. And in our district, we have instructional assistants and yard supervisors to cover that. Teachers are entitled to a duty-free lunch. So the estimate here is based on 2 per site. Now, we'd have to look at the ratio of students to adults for that. So this is just looking at 2 per site, and that would be a total district allocation of 30,030. It would be approximately, depending on the enrollment per site, 7,500 per site. There may be other considerations. This was just a few to start. So in the conversations that have come across my desk or in my meeting with teachers, also the thought of extended schedule has come up. So I'm putting that out here because it has come up several times, and primarily in looking at restoration of the Glorietta schedule that took place last year. Glorietta had the same amount of minutes as the other districts, but it was extended over a longer day. And so an extended schedule still has the staggered schedule time, but the intervention was offered in the morning before school started because the students arrived, the first students arrived at 8:45. The teachers have shared that the kindergarten lunch was also at a separate time than the other students to counteract the amount of students going through the lunch line, and that there were time for assessments in the afternoon. In looking at an extended schedule, cost considerations, using the same process, if there may or may not be an increase in instructional time, that would be the same as what we had on the previous slide. Again, if there may be some working conditions, that's unknown, that would have to be negotiated. The class size, the same as on the previous slide, and the facilities. Should there be, still when you are stretching out over a longer day, that you reduce the options of being able to have what some districts have. We don't have it here, an AM program and a PM program in one facility or in one classroom. I'm not saying that we would go there, but that's an option should enrollment increase. On the intervention schedule, again, depending on the length of the school day, there would not be an additional cost if it was to follow a similar model that Glorietta had last year. And then the lunch schedule, there would still need to be lunch supervision if it's an extended day. There would need to be some sort of break for the teachers as well as for the students. So what I want to share with you is on the intervention schedule right now, the Ed Code requires that teachers are assigned, if they are full-time teachers, and if they are assigned to only a part-time program, that they do support other students, and it typically is in the primary grades. And the primary grades are defined as kindergarten, first, second, third. We have some kindergarten teachers who've been supporting some students in other grades as part of that, not instead of, but in addition to, and we're taking steps to be in compliance for that. So with that, this is our road to discussion.
Okay, I think we really talked on that last point of intervention. Could you describe to us a little bit the types of intervention that might have to be reallocated if we were to do a program? What types of intervention are we talking about?
Typically, the students who are at the most at risk in our primary grades, primarily in reading, some in mathematics, who are operating at least 2 years below grade level in reading, or 2 levels below, we try to bring them up to speed with additional support beyond what they're getting in the classroom. And so we have some specific programs that we've been implementing. We have a menu of programs actually, and each school identifies what's going to work best for what student. We want to try to catch them primarily when at their youngest, when they're the youngest and when we can help to move them up. So that's what the kindergarten teachers have been doing for our district.
And kindergarten teachers are natural people to do that because they know the kids. How about replacing that? You've outlined a cost for that. What would that look like in terms of resources?
Well, what would that look like? Well, I think that ideally if we can provide the service, it is a service to students while they're with us during the school day. That is a benefit as opposed to before or after school and getting the students there. So I think in looking at that model, that would be something we want to look at. Certainly that we can look at, should it be delivered by a certificated teacher or another teacher, but with our students that are most at risk or need the greatest support, we want the best and the brightest to be serving them as well. So I guess that would be a larger conversation as to what it should look like with a larger group of educators.
Can I follow up on the intervention piece? Do you have with you any numbers in terms of how many students we're talking about that are in intervention? Or
I can tell you that last year when we looked at students who qualified for intervention support in reading, our numbers ranged between 46 and by the end of the year 35. But what we try to do is, even if we have kids that are not desperately in need but could use the extra support, we expand it. So I'd say we have under 100 across the district, but it varies because our goal is to have, because it's a service, have students move in and out throughout the year. So there may be some students that start an intervention, but they exit out, and then halfway through the year, the next trimester, we're seeing that there's some other students that need to come in. But it hasn't been my experience to see us surpass 100 students in the district yet.
Could a specialist or specialists do that intervention and additional work as well? I mean,
Which
take a known specialist, a literacy specialist or somebody, a math specialist, somebody like that who could be qualified to do that and could do that in addition to other services for the district?
I guess anything is possible. I think there's short stints of time every day. So the goal is to have consistency and constant practice to help children master a skill. And I would want to defer to my teachers or our teachers who do provide intervention and how they're seeing that, because they're at the school site, because they're there and they know the students, if there's a greater sense of progress as having one person go around to all the schools. We'd have to look at that. With the current schedule of our specialists, it would be hard to add that in. It's a refocus. Our specialists focus primarily on working with teachers right now.
And so right now, kindergarten teachers do intervention in the morning for 8:45, and then after their school day is done?
I believe this year it's at the end of the day with the new schedule. Last year at Glorieta it was done in the morning.
Kathy, can you say in round numbers how many minutes or hours each campus generally provides per day of intervention services?
Let's say the range is approximately 40 to 50 minutes, 4 days a week.
For all the students or for each student?
For each student.
45 minutes a day.
40 to 50 minutes. Depending on, again, the need of the students and the schedule. Some students need more, some students need less.
Well, I wanted to say, in addition to understanding the intervention piece, that I know you mentioned that the State Department of Tom Torlickson's office is doing research and that they're going to report back, but that won't be till July 2017. And meanwhile, I've been aware that there's a lot of research showing that how important early childhood education is, and that an extended day might be a good thing. I don't think that, I also understand it's very complex, and I don't think that we would be able to have enough information just at a board level meeting here, not just tonight, but even if it was another night. So I was gonna suggest that, I know we're gonna hear from the audience, but my general direction would be to support exploring the idea of extended day kindergarten and setting up a committee to do a little more research and come back to the board with the recommendation. So I just wanted to say that now in case any of the audience have comments on that, and I would hope that if we did that, we could get a committee with representing all stakeholders, both parents and teachers and administration.
I agree. Sorry. I agree with Sarah on that. My comment is that I don't see the point of extending the day of kindergarten just so that the students could have lunch. I would like to see more teaching minutes as well as extending the day. So if we can provide those young students with more actual education while extending the day and do both, I think that would be a much more robust and enriching program for the students.
Yeah, agreed, and we would need to consider the costs, of course, along with this, and come back to the board with, you know, possible cost figures and scenarios about how this could be done.
Can I just ask a follow-up question on the intervention piece? Do the kids all go, when we went to Sleepy Hollow for the site visit, it looked like the kids go to like a computer lab and they're all kind of working at the same time with computer-based programs for that. So is that basically how it's done? It's all in one room, or are teachers going into classrooms and working with kids? Like, how is the intervention
So
done?
that's a really good question. We purchased a reading program this year, and what you saw was Lexia, which is a program that is supposed to help expedite and support reading progress for students. And with that program, I think teachers have been able to have mixed grades in a lab to work on that program. That program is not our only intervention program, it's just one of what we have. And so, you asked me your question again.
I was just wondering if that's how it's typically, I mean, you said there's math
Yes, there's
intervention
math,
also,
and
so.
you may have heard of a program called Barton. We have some where we've had instructional assistants trained in Barton and teachers in the past. There's other programs, one called RAS Kids, that can be done in the classroom, at home, and in that higher level strategic intervention. So we try to develop a menu, but this year, because Lexi is new, we've been learning it and we've been seeing results, we are starting to put more students on Lexia.
So that model of having all the kids there in a room at lunchtime is one way we do it, but it's not the only way.
Right, different schools are doing it differently.
I'd like to return to Carol's question about content, because I do think there's a spectrum on content of more instructional minutes and what that looks like, especially since we don't have best standards. And the reality for all the parents in the room that have kids that age of not over-programming, the need for socialization and the other things that go on. I'm sure there are all sorts of models and studies, and I think we've seen a little bit of that. But do you have any feedback of a preference of the way that would look based on your conversations with teachers and parents?
Well, I think I think that everyone has and wants to weigh in on what it could look like for Orinda students.
That's a good answer.
Our next politician.
Those are important views, the teachers who would have to implement it, and the parents and what they're asking.
I mean, Jason, my first reaction on that was, I initially thought that this was potentially an opportunity to get 5-year-olds more information, to teach them more stuff during the day, but my understanding is that it's really an opportunity to take the same amount of content and not have to rush it through. That we can take a more relaxed pace with kids, that we don't have to transition them so quickly from being in line to get to recess, from the carpet where they're having an opportunity to do some columbification. So one of the things that appeals to me is the opportunity to have a little bit more of a relaxed pace, not necessarily to get more content.
I appreciate that. There was some teacher comments along those lines.
And parents.
And her.
Yes, thank you. We ready to hear from the public? Anything else from the board at this time?
Well, let me just say, I had heard some concerns about what other things maybe we should fund, and would this be weighed against that? So I just also want to say, I hope that any work we do would come back before we really begin the budget process in earnest, because anything, it should all fold into the budget process at the same time, so.
Noted. Okay. Showtime. Yeah, public comments. We have speaker cards. Orinda Principal Jim Barman. One time was a summer school principal. Is that true?
I think I've been promoted. Wow.
Orinda teacher Jim Barman.
Thank you. I speak tonight on behalf of my Glorieta colleagues and myself to urge the board to lengthen our kindergarten day. I don't stand here with advanced degrees, but I do have 40 years of experience with very young students in Orinda classrooms. I believe the heart of the issue centers around something I learned when I first came here so long ago to teach. I learned kindergarten first from 2 truly awesome sources. I worked with 2 Delray kindergarten teachers, Joyce Marsh and Georgina Campbell. They'd both spent 45+ years teaching kindergarten in Orinda. They would whisper something to me, FBI, many times, and they'd whisper it again and again, and I would say, what does that mean? What does that mean? And they would say, frequent, brief, and interspersed. That's how you teach lessons that'll stick with very young children. I think Georgina Campbell probably had it cross-stitched on her wall behind her desk. The first 2 are very relatively easy to do, and all kindergarten teachers in Orinda do them very well. We teach brief lessons to match their attention level, and we revisit curricular elements often, using repetition and frequency to strengthen the teaching. The interspersion, though, is probably the most important element, and it is sadly neglected when we have a very short day. Students need ample time to develop a solid understanding of what they've learned. The very language of Common Core instruction speaks to this fact, but this can't be done when teachers rush through the morning, stacking lessons like rush hour plane flights on top of each other, without interspersing with little bits of short brain rest, time, and efforts to let the learning sink in. What teachers desire is for their lessons to be sticky, the phrase used by our trainers from the Columbia Teachers College. The learning sticks when interspersed breaks allow young children to assimilate, to work through, to respond to the lessons. A hurry-up morning in kindergarten just can't do this. Interestingly enough, we teachers also suffer from a lack of stickiness when overzealous presenters pack too much info into staff development days. Some great teaching laws are universal. Our short morning can also cause collateral damage to the quality of history, social science instruction, art instruction, and PE. I'm very confident the board will vote to give us the time to do the highest quality job teaching kindergartners every day. The hallmark of this district has always been our ability to teach everything to the highest standard. It has been since a certain very skinny, very young, black-bearded guy came here to teach 40 years ago.
Thank you, Jim. Catherine Ship.
Well, I'm really glad that we have an opportunity to have this conversation now. I'd like to say, also, I'm in my 40th year of teaching, although not all kindergarten. Kindergarten has always been a time for social skills, the arts, singing songs, what I call scampering around the classroom and pretending you're a cat. You know, things like that. And there's always been the academics as well. But even though we demand more and more and more of them, they're still 5 and 6 years old, and they still need to have those little kindergarten activities. They need that, and they need art, because that's how they learn. It helps to reinforce what they're learning. And as we've gone on in the number of years that I've been teaching, more and more has been demanded of the kindergarten students academically. And now with Common Core, our children are expected to read at a level E at the end of kindergarten. They are expected to write a language experience story. They're expected to do persuasive writing. They're expected to do informative writing. They're expected to use, this is out of the Common Core, spaces between words, upper and lowercase letters, periods. They're supposed to use descriptive words and voice in their writing. That doesn't even mention math. We have science, and we're excited to do hands-on science with kindergartners. They love it, and they get so much out of it, but it takes time. Social studies, art, music, all those things take time. And what we find is that we have, you know, if you want to do art, well, you're going to take something else out. If you're going to do a good science activity, you're going to take something else. Something's going to suffer because you simply don't have the time. You don't have the time for the social interaction that is so important for kindergartners. It is. It's all for all children, but they're still 5 and 6. They're bright. They've been to preschool. They have a lot going for them when they arrive at our door in the kindergarten, but they're still 5 and 6 years old. My priority is to my kindergarten students, and there are many, many ways that intervention can be addressed, and it has been addressed in the past since I've been here. This is my 10th year here. My priority is for my kindergarten students, and I believe that we really need to focus on our kindergarten students. As kindergarten teachers, that's what we would like to do.
Thank you. Nadine Waters.
So I'm Nadine Waters, and I'm an Orinda native, and to the schools as well. And we moved back to the community for the schools, and because of a growing awareness that education is going to become premier for our children's future. So a little bit about my background. I have 3 children. I work at Kaiser as a psychologist, and I have doctoral and professional training in neuro and clinical psychology. So I'm here today to really share with you the neuroscience behind a kindergartner's brain. And what the research shows is that a full day of kindergarten gives our kids the best opportunity to gain critical and lasting, lifelong lasting skills in the area of cognitive, emotional, and behavioral success. And equally important, what it does show is that there's a window of time. And if we don't capitalize on that window of time, it becomes much harder for them to gain the skills long term. So what do we know about these little brains? We know that there's a tremendous amount of growth in neurons and the connections between the ages of 4.5 and 6. And we know that that growth is really contingent on the academic experiences that they have, that they must be stimulating, and that the brain grows in accordance with that stimulation. So, so what are these skills that we're really looking to build in that window of time? When we talk about scampering around, I think that that was really well put. Because it isn't just about scampering or socialization, that these things that kindergarten teachers intuitively know actually map to parts of the brain. And we call these things executive function. And what they are is, you can consider it the air traffic controller of your brain. And these are skills that we don't just need in education and academics, we need lifelong in our relationships and in our profession. So what they are really is that they form the biological foundation for academic readiness, these critical building blocks. And I don't know if you have the slides, it's too bad we didn't project them on here, but they're basic things that all the kindergarten teachers say, you know, when we were growing up, you needed to know more of, like pay attention, you need to pay attention more, you need to avoid distraction. Things like working memory, when your kids are reading through a chapter book, going from paragraph to paragraph, that they can hold the information that they just read as they move forward. Critical thinking, self-direction, self-control and impulsivity, as Mr. Shannon knows from my own son. Self-regulation, problem solving, social skills, empathy. So these really are the things that are not to be overlooked, and you know, and that we need to take very seriously. So when we talk about these things, we really want to say that they do leave lasting academic achievements, and in addition to social, emotional, physical, and moral development as well. So digging in a little bit deeper into what these executive function skills do, they really provide the basis for learning, for math, reading, and writing. And if you look at my slides, I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't have time, but I mapped them to the executive function skills, to attention, working memory, and control. They help kids master content efficiently. These kids make larger gains and earlier gains in math, literacy, and language. Am I out of time? Okay. And they engender curiosity, you know, so kids can engage to learn. I'm just going to take 2 seconds more. But what is really important, because we've let some of these kids go through without this extended day, and it's not a mystery because longitudinal studies have shown that these kids do indeed lack executive function skills. And it speaks to slower mastery of educational content. And I know, yada yada, we do the intervention. We talked a lot about the intervention first and second, and that's great. But it's really remedial, because the pop happens at 3rd grade with the achievement gap. And at that point, it's really very challenging to get over it. So these kids that are learning to read, and now all of a sudden have to read to learn, can't make that switch.
Thanks, Nadine.
And so then there's one more thing I do want to say. I'm sorry, because I put a lot of work in it, and I didn't know that there was a time limit. But on this page here is the curriculum. And the curriculum isn't teaching curriculum. It's scampering around the class in a directed way. Because these are the things that build the brain and give us the ability to move forward in a way that's successful with academic readiness.
Molly Wilson.
I am a second-year Parents Club president for Sleepy Hollow, and we have a very supportive, very vocal, and great population of parents. We're not just Sleepy Hollow, but Orinda. We expect a lot of money and a lot of time and energy from parents. But over the last few years, some of the services that we had come to expect have been going by the wayside. Parents are starting to vocalize their frustration with that. Volunteering has also slipped when noticing that we have much more families, both working parents, so that's definitely conducive to extended day kindergarten. I think extended day kindergarten would be a huge morale boost for parents and their support of OUSD. I've been approached more on this subject than anything else recently. 100% supportive of it. Going with
extended day kindergarten, if we're able to go that way, we're hoping not to lose any programs along the way. That would, I think, be a big hit to the morale of the district and further erode confidence in the district. And we feel that extended day, or I feel that extended day kindergarten is a real reinvestment in our students. And any reinvestment we can do now will pay dividends in the future. That's it.
Thanks, Paul. Megan Baldwin.
Hi there, I'm Megan Baldwin. I'm a current parent of a kindergartner at Lavender Ranch Elementary School. My son also attended transitional kindergarten there. So we've been in the district for a year and a half. I have a 4-year-old son and a 20-month-old daughter. So you're going to be seeing a lot of this face in the next decade. So I'm here in support of the extended kindergarten from both a parent perspective, and I'm also one of the co-directors for Orinda Moms, which is the local mothers club. We have just over 900 members. And today we have close to 260 Orinda mothers. So that's a lot of the faces you see in the room here, and that's a lot of the faces to come. So parents who will be elementary parents in the future. And so I actually first heard about Extended K through the forums on Orinda Moms, what had happened in Lafayette. And so I spoke with my own son's kindergarten teacher, and I was actually surprised that this has been a topic that's come before the board, not just 1 year, not just 2 years, but several years in support of this extended kindergarten program. Prior to living in Orinda, I lived in Burlingame, and although I was not an elementary school parent, I served on the Mothers Club board there. We hosted a panel, a district panel, and invited all the principals and the superintendent from that community. And during that 3-year period I lived there, they actually moved their kindergarten program from an AM/PM to an extended kindergarten. It was their current kindergarten goes from 8:30 to 2. And at the time, I thought that was too long of a day. They didn't have this slip schedule, which I think is very age and developmentally appropriate. But at the time, I think I was selfish because I think I was pregnant and I had 2 younger kids. So I'll be honest, the short day worked for me on the personal side. But now, as a parent of a kindergartner, I can see that there's something to be said about the temperament of these children who are going through this quick, abbreviated, essentially a 3-hour day. And I know that we're comparing ourselves to perhaps Lafayette, and I mentioned Burlingame. In the slide that you have before you, you'll see Campbell and Los Altos and Hillsborough, which has a slip schedule that we're proposing. But I actually think that there's only one district that we really need to compare ourselves to at any given time. Like, you know what? Rachel Zinn, who I spoke with on Friday, was so celebratory of what's happening in her district. But I don't think we need to compare ourselves to Lafayette. We have one community, one excellent community to compare ourselves with, and that's right here in Orinda. So we're all here, we're striving for excellence, we're striving to continue to bring the best to our kids. So again, if I could just support what our teachers are saying, what the concerns they have, not only from kindergarten teachers, but first grade teachers who are saying, you know what, our transition is challenging. We've got these kids who are coming in, 6- and 7-year-olds, who they're having challenges with. We need to support our teachers. We need to continue to strive for excellence, and we only need to be better than Orinda, because Orinda is already the best.
Thanks, Megan. Cheryl Bjornson.
Hi, everyone.
4-year-old who will be in kindergarten. Oh, he goes to Seedlings in Lafayette and will be in kindergarten next year, or next fall. I first wanted to start out by saying thank you to the district and to all 5 board members for communicating with me over this past month. I also wanted to thank the board and Dr. Jackinet for adding extended kinder as a discussion item to the school board meeting agenda tonight. I know you need to address a wide variety of issues, so I appreciate the attention you've given the extended day topic. I also want to thank the 4 elementary school site employees and teachers who have taken time out of their busy schedules to speak with an extensive range of parents. Thank you. As you may know, the collaborative outreach, research, and support from teachers and a broad range of parents from all 4 Orinda elementary schools has been extensive. The presentation with proposed schedule provided to each of you is a product of that collaboration. We have learned a lot from our 4 elementary schools. We have also learned a lot from Lafayette and from various benchmark districts. There are 2 clear takeaways. The first is extended kinder benefits all our children long term, which is why it is the trend seen in California schools, including many similar districts as ours. The increased instructional time is not just for core curriculum, but also to slow the pace of the day, to allow more free time and to allow for crucial transitional minutes, all of which have been shown to benefit kindergartners during kindergarten and for the rest of their lives, as Dr. Waters explained. The second takeaway is its implementation does not need to, nor can it come at the price of cutting another program or benefit. Benchmark districts under similar budget constraints have faced tougher issues such as facility space and have made extended kinder happen without it costing them intervention. Increasing class size or losing established enrichment programs. Orinda needs to follow these examples. A number of you have asked what the board can do. My request is that the board will create a temporary advisory body that will present a recommendation by April for approval by the board to implement extended kinder in August 2015. I request that each site in our district increase in equal instructional minutes in that kinder day, and that the district collaborate with the 4 sites about issues that range from what needs to be offered in terms of reaching and providing intervention for our students in grades 1 through 5, to the benefits of choosing a bell schedule that works for each site. Extended kinder combined with a well thought out solution to intervention is an opportunity for this district to not only reach our very youngest, but also to impact those who need it most in grades 1 through 5. I can honestly say that this has been an incredibly positive experience working with and getting to know so many people in our great community. We really can come together when we share a common good and a common goal. Thank you again for your time.
Neil Wright.
Well, thanks for hearing me and thanks for having this on the agenda. So,
Push that thing.
Yeah, right.
Go ahead.
so I'm a parent here in Orinda. Just moved here a couple of years ago for the schools. And we'd heard that there was a rule that you had to have 3 kids if you live in Orinda, so we have 3. And our oldest is our daughter who's at TK at Delray. And she'll be going to kindergarten at Glory Avenue next year, and then we'll have 2 more after that. And just to say that we're very supportive of this. This would mean a lot to us, having this extended day. Our biggest concern with our children is just their transition into their academic career, and we feel like, for all the reasons that have been said, this would be, very important in helping that transition happen. We just saw our oldest go into TK for the first time and go through those emotional changes and whatnot, and so, that's a big concern of ours. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all your comments. This is back to the board for discussion.
Kathy, we just heard a date of April 1. Implementation, what kind of time would we need to know whether we could do this next academic year?
Anytime. I think April is, again, it's bringing information back and then the board making the decision and making sure that all of the budget components are in place.
So Jason, we have two budget meetings in June.
Right.
One to discuss and then one to adopt budget. Those are our crucial dates as far as I'm concerned as they relate to this, so I don't see an impediment on the schedule as we move forward.
I do think we would need to really consider, you know, there is a cost, like about $150,000 or so to implement this. So I think it's important for us to look at this in light of our budget, in light of our other programs, in light of possible other restorations and things like that, to make, you know, a well thought through decision about it. You know, so I'd like to see us moving forward with it, but you know, making sure it's a part of our budget discussion as well.
That's why I brought it up.
No, but I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a
In
workshop.
the context of the budget.
You know. But I'm just wondering, you know, you both mentioned committee, and I'm just, you know, I think obviously a group of people need to be discussing this and moving forward if it's going to happen. It just, you know, if we're trying to do something that would be implemented in August, you know, the committee can take, as Jason and I know, a committee of two, you know, that was a pretty aggressive schedule for us to do something in 1 month. And that was just 2 people, and, you know, I just don't want to create a huge committee that's going to end up slowing down the process if we're really trying to move something along quickly. So in my mind, it's sort of like, how do we get the information that we need in a really timely fashion? You know, and in my mind, it's you know, a proposed schedule for extended day, how would we implement it, a plan for implementation, and a real cost analysis. So it seems to me like there's 3 pieces that you guys can think of other components, but those are sort of the big issues for me.
Julie, I can see the need to have a streamlined committee. So not a committee of 30 or 40 people, but if we could have 2 members of the board, 2 parents, and 2 teachers.
Yeah, that's a thought. I don't think a committee would be prohibited, and I can't, I think a committee would allow us to kind of hash through the different issues in terms of exactly what the schedule could be, exactly how could we do intervention, what would that cost. We wouldn't want, I mean, I just think it's really important that if we have a committee, that allows the kindergarten teachers, for example, to be part of the discussion, which I think is really important, and I don't think it has, you know, even though it's complicated, it feels doable. There's a lot of people who've already done a lot of work, and
I'm
so.
not saying it's not doable. I don't know if we need a board member really committee, for example, for this kind of committee. I'm not sure. I mean, to me, it's the staff, you know, teachers, Kathy, principals kind of thing that could get us the information that we need, and then the policies with,
There's probably multiple ways to do it.
Yeah, I mean, my thought was have Kathy, a couple teachers, a couple parents, maybe a principal. I think I'd rather have that committee come back to the whole board rather than have a board member serve on the committee. That was my thought on it. And then ask them to get back to us with an update in March to see what kind of information they're able to get us relative to the parameters, similar to what Julie just provided, and go from there.
Kathy, would an April decision give teachers long enough to prepare for that and plan their days and change their classroom in any way necessary?
For the fall.
Yeah. Would that be sufficient time for them?
I would have to consult with them to defer, but I would think that I would think that that's ample time. And I think when we start our planning for next year in April on various other schedules, as we're looking at setting, you know, the stage for our curriculum and our programs that begins in April as well. I think when we're looking at scheduling structure, there are some, you know, other factors within the programs that we have at the schools, the after-school programs. There's a more, it's a little bit broader that we have to communicate with. But
I
that's
also
what we
just
do.
want to thank everybody for coming, and I'm sorry that so many of you had to stand. But thank you for your hard work.
I think I also want to make sure that, in my mind at least, I think it's really important to make sure that we have buy-in from the principals and the teachers. So all the feedback I've been hearing has been positive, but I just want to make sure that that's something that,
Yeah, I think in order to,
and that the intervention piece obviously would have to be looked at, like what other options we
Yeah,
have for
that's
that.
what I was gonna add.
Absolutely.
And the other piece that I meant to also mention is, what are we doing about TK in this situation? Could we get a waiver, and are those waivers short term, if we could get a waiver, or do we just want to try to say, okay, TK, because in my mind, in some ways, I'd rather keep TK shorter and do the extended day for kindergarten, but, I understand that that doesn't seem like we could do it, except if we do get a waiver. I don't know the process, I don't know how easy it is to get a waiver, I don't know if it's a short-term thing, or permanent, or does it apply every year, I just think there's a lot of questions out there on that piece that would be nice to look at.
Also, one thing, I know we've all been, all five of us have been hearing a lot about this consistently for several weeks now, and I just want to be sure that I convey some of the things that I've heard very consistently across the board, and that is, parents seem to want this without any increase in class size, and they do want an increase in instructional minutes. What else have I heard?
They don't want an impact on other programs.
Yeah, yeah. In other words, they don't want to lose something to gain this.
Right, and that's why the budget piece, I think, is
Yeah.
critical for us to have
Yeah,
that,
sure.
because we haven't really had that.
even though, someone said there's no need for a board member on it, I don't see why we couldn't have a board member on the committee. I was interested in participating in the committee. So I'm not sure if there's some advantage for not doing that. And I also want to say, I think it would be important not only just to have two kindergarten teachers, but also to have, representation from OEA, aside from, because it could impact, especially intervention, how we do that. It could impact other teachers, or other certificated employees. I don't know. I just want to bring that up. Seems like the kindergarten teachers, if we're not gonna have, I was originally thinking 4 kindergarten teachers, one from each site. The information that I've gathered is that the kindergarten, some schedules and some of how we've done intervention over the 4 sites last year was quite different. So if we're changing how we're doing it, it's gonna impact every site, and there's gonna be different impacts at each site. So I think it's really important to try to get good representation from the kindergarten teachers and from OEA on that.
I agree with that. I hadn't thought about that, but at least one teacher from each side.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I want to support that concept of because Cheryl mentioned it in her presentation of the bell system, each school having, that we add to the list of things we want considered when it comes back to the board, that factor, how the schools.
Right, well, that was my first one,
Yeah.
was the proposed schedule, that's what I meant.
Okay, gotcha. Good, no, good.
And the implementation plan.
And it may be different at schools, yeah.
But,
Yeah.
right, like different schools could start at different times.
Right.
Anything else on the board? What
So
I'd like
where
to do
are we in
is,
this?
what I'd like to do is, I'd like to ask Kathy to form a committee to make recommendations to the board relative to extended kindergarten for 2015-2016. And I'd like him to come back to us in March if at all possible. I'd like to give Kathy the discretion to form the committee. Personally, I'd like to keep the committee as small as possible, just for the purposes, getting these people together as often as possible and having the ability to get back to us in March. The larger the committee, just the harder it is to schedule. So that's what I'm inclined to do.
Yeah, my thought on that in terms of scheduling a committee is that since the timeline is important and it has to be soon, you would invite, whatever number of people we're talking about, and then, it doesn't necessarily have to be every single person has to meet. If you were trying to get 8 people together and the first time you could meet is not till a month, then obviously that's not gonna work. So you could have an alternative person attend who represents that, whether it's kindergarten teacher or parent or what. So I agree that it's really important that this move along quickly and that they get some recommendations coming back soon.
And I have to say, one of the great things about this whole process is how organic and driven by parents and teachers it has been. And I just think we keep letting that floodgate go of information to Kathy so that it can be funneled as quickly as possible for that next meeting. So I think flexibility is important, and I think there are a lot of avenues for people to get information to you and then back to us, because it'll be a discussion item again the next meeting. So.
I feel like we've given good direction. All right, thank you very much, Kathy.
We'll see you next month.
Good deal. I'm going to call for a recess. We'll meet back at 7:20, which is about 8 minutes.